How's it hanging, folks? Today we're back at it again with some Space Engineers. I am recording this intro after the fact because, for whatever reason, my recording software glitched out and didn't record my voice. So you're getting a voiceover narrated episode of Space Engineers. And also, remember, this weekend, GenghisCon in Aurora, Colorado, Colorado's largest tabletop gaming convention. I will be there with a booth for my business, Mindmaster Games. Come check it out if that sounds like fun to you. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the game, shall we? So first things first, I need to decide on some goals for the day. So I'd finished up the building last time, and I decided the refinery needs some of those modules to make it run a little bit better. I wanted to make the building look a little bit nicer. I wanted to create a flying vehicle. I decided the first one I was going to work on was the flying vehicle, because that seemed like the most fun of them. So I got to work synthesizing all the parts I needed to build it on top of the house. And so, after quite a while of building, the small aircraft was complete. However, I really didn't want to take it for much of a test run until sunrise, because, you know, it runs on solar power. And I also decided I kind of wanted it to be able to dock into the building, so I would need to make a couple of renovations to my new home to create a connector on top of the building that this plane could then land on. But unfortunately, I had actually built the plane on top of the very spot I wanted to connect to, and put the landing gear on the spot on the plane I would have to build a connector. So I would have to move the landing gear and get a little bit creative. What I came up with was this sort of centrally located piston, at the bottom of which would be a landing gear. So I could extend it out like a stilt, and then it would touch the ground and connect with the landing gear. And because the way landing gears work, it can balance on one no problem. And then it was time to actually build the connector that would attach the plane into the base and renovate the base with a new connector to attach to the plane. And I decided while I was at it, I might as well add in a hole and a ladder so that I could actually climb to the top of the base without the need of the jetpack. Save a little hydrogen, you know? I was then confronted by another issue I had noticed while moving around the aircraft for a little while. It doesn't have enough power for those large upward facing, or downward facing, whatever direction, the thrusters that push you up. It doesn't have enough power for that, so I needed more batteries! Or to only fly it during the day. But more batteries seemed like the better solution for the moment. With the plane complete, I decided I needed a little scaffolding to get up to the cockpit while it's docked. Then the next order of business was to create those modules for the refinery. I decided on 2 speed modules and a yield module. Unfortunately, I quickly discovered I didn't actually have enough gold to make the yield module. So I set off in my trusty prospector vehicle to get a load of gold ore from that vein I'd discovered a while back. And then very quickly ended up flipping over the prospector and getting it stuck on its back. Fortunately, I am a resourceful kind of guy. And I have also flipped over vehicles loads of times while playing this game. So, I know just what I needed to do. I went back to the base, gathered up parts for a small atmospheric thruster and a gyroscope. And actually, the gyroscope didn't end up being needed this time, but attached the small atmospheric thruster to the side of the prospector, fired it, and flipped myself back over. And I was back on the road, back getting toward that gold. After I'd filled up the prospector's cargo bays with loads of gold ore and stone, I headed back to the base to get it all processed down and finished up that yield module. And now, to deal with the added power draw of both having to charge the aircraft as well as these 3 new modules, I figured my power production needed a bit of an upgrade. So I went forth adding 3 new wind turbines to my array. And now, with more power production, my base was once again running smoothly, and it was time to fill in those gaps around the top of my base, make it look a little bit nicer. Unfortunately, I couldn't use any of the decorative blocks because those are part of a DLC that maybe I'll get at some point, but don't have yet. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. With my base looking a bit nicer and the sun finally possibly risen, it was time to make the test flight. It was then that I found out the ship's defenses were actually active, and they began targeting the aircraft, and yeah, they destroyed it. So I decided that didn't happen, and reverted time using my mystical otherworldly powers. So yeah, I know the aircraft works for short periods at least. It had like a maximum flight time of 7 minutes, so not terribly long, but it works. And that I need to be more careful when salvaging that ship because its defenses still do very much work. Yeah, so that was neat. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. Hope that was at least mildly entertaining, and I hope to see you at GenghisCon this weekend. Again, Aurora, Colorado. This weekend, February 19th through 22nd. Vendors like me will be there February 20th through 22nd. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Hope that was at least mildly entertaining. I'll be back again soon with something else. Till then, see ya.